Welcome to episode 94 of Midweek News. We're playing a little bit of catch up this week, so let's get right into it. First up, we've got an article on betanews.com talking about log files. Most people don't learn about log files until there's something wrong with their system. It can be incredibly frustrating sorting through all that information to find some hint of what the problem is. This article walks through various details of log files, what they are, how to protect them, and how they can be exploited. Moving on. Fastfetch is the perfect replacement for Neofetch? Well, some may think so. We do all love Neofetch, or a good majority of us, and it served us well for a number of years. Unfortunately, the developer has decided to discontinue the project and archive it so he can move on to other endeavors. Enter Fastfetch, a new utility that picks up the slack and moves the fetch idea forward. And to make things better, Fastfetch supports Wayland. You can also customize Fastfetch to show just the information you want to see. The article talks about installing Fastfetch on Ubuntu and points out that it is in the repositories for the upcoming Ubuntu 24.10 that is due out in a few weeks. Kodi 21.1 Omega has been released. This is mainly a bug fix release, so if you've not upgraded, now's the time to consider it. Understanding network ports in Linux. This is a nice overview of network interfaces and network ports on Linux systems. If you're coming from Windows or macOS, some things may seem familiar to you, but others will have slight variations. Virtualbox 7.1 is available. If you've been looking for a new version of Virtualbox that supports Wayland, has a Qt 6 GUI, has clipboard sharing, and Apple Silicon support, you're in luck. VirtualBox 7.1 even brings a new logo and splash screen. If you haven't taken a look at VirtualBox lately, now is a great time to do so. Cali Linux 2024.3 has been released. My standard disclaimer about the usefulness of Cali applies here. I normally use Cali for the discovery of new tools and local network testing before installing these tools on a Debian or Ubuntu system. There are 11 new tools in this version of Cali, but some of the standouts include grep rough audit, which is a source code auditing tool, gsocket, which allows two machines on different networks to communicate with each other, mxcheck, information and security scanner for mail servers, netscanner, a network scanner and diagnostic tool with a text-based interface, and SIP-PTS, which is a set of tools to audit SIP-based VoIP systems. A welcome release. I will definitely be checking out several of these tools. Linux Antivirus. While not the target that Windows or macOS might be, there are more threats for Linux happening all the time. The article briefly mentions 5 antivirus solutions for Linux systems: ClamAV, Sophos Antivirus for Linux, ESET-Nod32 Antivirus for Linux, Komodo Antivirus, and FPROT Antivirus for Linux. Coupled with other tools like Linus and various rootkit checkers, you definitely have choices. SSH Port Forwarding. SSH Port Forwarding has 3 big advantages: bypassing firewall and network restrictions, access internal services that are not exposed to public networks, and safer protocols. Secure unencrypted services like FTP or RDP, which are not usually encrypted by default. This is a great article and a good refresher for me since I've not used this functionality in a good while. If you're new to SSH Port Forwarding, take a look. Haiku Release 1 Beta 5 is now available. This is very much an OS inspired by BOS. If you remember BOS from back in the 1990s or Amiga OS from even earlier, you might like taking this for a spin. The great thing about Haiku is that it will revive even the dustiest of old PCs that you may have thought were worthless. For Linux users, you will find a familiar command line, and it gives you a vastly different graphical interface to learn to use, which many people might see as a nice challenge. The Samba project has received a cash infusion. A German sovereign tech fund has donated 688,800 euros to advance the project. The focus of the development with the funds will be broken down into the following areas: SMB3 transport failover, SMB3 Unix extensions, and SMB direct performance, and modern security protocols such as SMB over QUIC. Development work is already underway and is expected to be completed by the end of February 2026. Raspberry Pi launches Pico VS Code Extension Beta. If you're doing programming for the Raspberry Pi Pico boards, this is a project you'll want to keep tabs on. The extension can make it easier to write and debug code for the Raspberry Pi Pico boards. To get this, search Pico-VS Code in the Visual Studio Marketplace. Reolink now has a battery video doorbell. This gives new options for renters or people with older homes who cannot easily run PoE cabling to a doorbell. It can use a 7,000 milliamp hour battery, which will last approximately 5 months, or wire it to existing doorbell wiring for continuous power. Integrates with the A Assistant, G Assistant, and RealLink chime. Supports dual band Wi-Fi and a micro SD card up to 256 gigs. Zorin OS 17.2 is now available, powered by the Linux kernel 6.8 from Ubuntu 24.04 LTS, ships with the latest LibreOffice 24.8. Many other updates and bug fix improvements are also included. And our last article for this 2-week period is that macOS Sequoia version 15 has breaking changes for VPN and antivirus. Coming from the always wait for the first point release files, this is a case in point. Each year, Mac users eagerly anticipate the new version of macOS, but there are times when it pays off to wait for the first point release before upgrading, especially on production machines. Antivirus vendors that are experiencing some issues include CrowdStrike Falcon, big surprise, and ESET Endpoint Security. Mullvad VPN is also experiencing some growing pains with this new macOS version. I'm probably going to hold off upgrading my Mac Mini until at least mid-October after the first point release. And that, my friends, will wrap up episode 94. My apologies for missing last week. Sometimes life and family stuff gets in the way, and I just didn't push myself to work around the drama and get an episode out. We should be back on track with a normal length episode next week. Thank you for watching.